Space tech is a booming business, with billions of US dollars invested in space travel and satellite startups. The sector could add nearly $2 trillion in global growth over the next decade. One of the leading investors in space tech is Dr. Kam Ghaffarian, a co-founder of Axiom Space, Intuitive Machines, Quantum Space, and several more. He joined me on the main stage at this year's Collision Conference, a tech conference with more than 30,000 attendees. I'm Jennifer Strong, and this is Shift.
Now here on the steering column is a device called Auto Cruise. You simply set the speed you want to.
Self-driving robo-taxis are already on the road in 2 U.S. cities.
As the disk rotates, a mirror reflects the light in the way that depends on how the signal was recorded.
This is the 100 terabyte optical. I present to you Electro, the Moto Man.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I would say that one of my greatest skills is my ability to interact with humans.
This episode was taped in front of a live audience in Toronto, Canada.
Please welcome in conversation with Jennifer Strong of the Shift podcast, the co-founder and executive chairman of Axiom Space, Dr. Kam Ghaffarian.
Hello, everybody. All right, so you don't just dabble in space, Kam. I mean, this has been your entire career. It's your passion. It's where you've made your success. But how did you get down this path? How did you start?
Since I was 6 years old, I was really inspired looking at the stars and being mesmerized by them, thinking about what it's like to actually go to other planets outside our solar system. And when I was 11 years old, I saw Neil Armstrong landing on the surface of the moon, and that made me decide that I want that to be my career, and that's what I started doing.
So fast forward a few years, he gives up a scholarship in his home country of Iran, if I have your story correct.
Yes.
And you moved to the United States to join the space race, basically with what you brought with you.
Yes, I left when I was close to 18 years old with literally $2,000 borrowed money. And I arrived in Washington, D.C., put myself through school, first degree computer science engineering, and soon after really started supporting space programs.
All right, so set the scene for us here. What was it like to be part of the space industry at that point?
You know, that's early 1980s. Actually, it was 1980, and we had successfully landed on the surface of the moon, and we were thinking about what to do next. And so that was the early days of Space Shuttle. And in fact, one of the programs I started with was Space Lab Data Processing Facility. Later on, really got into the space station and how do we now deploy a laboratory in low Earth orbit. And so, was heavy duty involved in that kind of activities. And in 1994, me and another gentleman decided that we were going to open our own company. Literally, I mortgaged my house, and we started in my basement, and that's how the first organization called SGT, which stands for Stinger Ghaffarian Technologies, started.
Okay, then fast forward to today, and terms like space economy or moon business might, result in some blank stares, right? So how do you onboard people for whom these terms may not make very much sense to what is the current reality of the space industry?
Yeah, not many people realize how small we are in the context of the universe. Maybe I can provide a little perspective. People are familiar with the space station, International Space Station, which is 250 miles above Earth. Familiar with lots of people talking about the moon and Mars. But if we leave our solar system behind, get past Moon, Mars, and all of that, we are in our galaxy called Milky Way. The distance from one point of our galaxy to another point of our galaxy is 100,000 light years. Okay, 100,000 light years, so we go with the speed of light. One way takes 100,000 years. And in our galaxy alone, there are 400 billion stars, just like our own sun. And each of those stars have planets around them. So just imagine how large is our galaxy alone. The closest star to our star, the sun, is 4.25 light years. It's called Proxima Centauri. And with our current technology, actually, if you go with the nuclear technology, it would take 2,000 years for us to go to our closest star, which is 4.25 light years away.
Oh.
Now, to just sort of really blow your mind and say, let's assume that we leave our galaxy behind, and now we're in the universe. Now we know with James Webb Space Telescope and other telescopes that we have, that there are at least 2 trillion other galaxies. 2 trillion other galaxies, and many of those galaxies, of course, are larger than our own. So we're such a small part, and my belief is that we are really universal beings, but don't have realized it yet, and our ultimate destiny is really to become interstellar and be able to go to other stars.
Let's talk about the moon. So earlier this year, one of your companies, Intuitive Machines, became the first commercial outfit to land on the moon, right? And also brought the United States back to the moon for the first time in 50 years. What does the next 10 years look like for you?
Well, first of all, let me just tell you that I am just incredibly proud, humbled, and honored that we were able to be the first private company in the history of humankind successfully landing on the surface of the moon. That's such an incredible feat, and we did all of that in 4 years, okay, with $118 million from conception to design, to build, to operate, and successfully land on the surface of the moon. And we have series of moon landers that we're building. Next one, hopefully later this year, we're looking forward to send our IM-2 to the surface of the moon with many additional payload, including installing a 4G network on the surface of the moon. But I think the space exploration, Jennifer, is really accelerating and growing. And we've been talking a lot about AI here, and I think AI and quantum computing and robotics are going to accelerate this. When I was at the launch site for our moon lander, I made a prediction that the next 30, 40 years, we might have an opportunity where we will have maybe hourly launches to a space city outside Earth, that now today we call it a space station. And potentially having daily launches to the moon with a habitat on the surface of the moon, and maybe monthly launches to the Mars, again with having habitat humanity there. And my dream is that hopefully we'll have a quarterly launches to places outside our solar system. So I think the space exploration is here to stay and is growing by leaps and bounds.
So what about you? Have you been to space?
I have not, but of course, being a space cadet, that's my dream.
Okay. It seems like you'd be able to make that dream come true of anybody. You brought up the International Space Station a few moments ago, and you know, the ISS is running out of time. A number of companies, including one of your own, Axiom Space, are working to build new space stations, and yours will be attached to the original space station for at least a time.
Correct.
I should also say Axiom, for now, was the first to deliver astronauts privately to the International Space Station. Is becoming kind of known as like a space airline in a way, bringing astronauts from all over the world back and forth. But I think it's safe to say that probably not everybody knows why this matters, like what the purpose of keeping humans and space stations in low Earth orbit would be.
Of course, you know, obviously if you talk to the kids, they would tell you that, wow, space is sexy. It was for me, right? And exciting and unknown. And I believe that part of our DNA, human DNA, is that we are explorers and we want to explore the unknown. But if you get past that part, people don't realize that how much the space exploration and what we do in space actually affects everyday's life on Earth, right? And let me just elaborate on that a little bit. So the current space station is 250 miles above Earth, okay, on a low Earth orbit. When you're in space, you're in a microgravity environment. And there are many advantages in microgravity that we don't have on Earth, unfortunately. I'll just give you a couple of examples of things that affects everyday life. We will be able to print corneas and retinas in space, and maybe many other bioprinting as this bioprinting technology grows. And why is that? Well, the reason is when you are on Earth, you have gravity. Gravity will pull the molecules down. When you are in a microgravity environment, the molecules naturally go where they need to go. So you can do all kinds of different things that you cannot do on Earth. I'll give you one more example, fiber optics. We produce fiber optics today on Earth, but the fiber optics that we create is not able to carry infrared signals. Because of the microgravity environment, we'll be able to create fiber optics on microgravity environment that can carry infrared signal. So think about all these different industries, from pharmaceutical to bioprinting to medical research to manufacturing to training astronauts. These are all what I call the new ecosystem, LEO ecosystem, the new marketplace that's going to be created that I think is going to be multi-billion-dollar marketplace. And all of that really affects the everyday's life on Earth.
You mentioned Mars very briefly, but what about Mars? Are we going there?
Yes, no question. We are going there, and there are a lot of pioneers that are working on that. We're building this rocket ship that every day are larger and larger. And I'm hoping in the future that we can even enable them with 100% safe nuclear, so we can shorten the time that we're able to go to Mars. But as you know, we now know that there is water on the moon. In fact, our moon lander, Odysseus, landed on the south pole of the moon. And we also know that there is water on Mars. So I can see not too far a future where humanity will be multi-planetary species and have habitat not only on the moon, but also on Mars.
So next 5-7 years, what are you watching closely?
Well, in Intuitive Machines, we're building series of moon landers. Plus, recently we won a contract to build the first moon buggy on the surface of the moon called Lunar Train Vehicle that can carry the astronauts around and all of that. This is all with the commercial space. Also building commercial satellites on the moon orbit. With Axiom Space, we're building the first private commercial space station. We've had successfully taken 3 private astronaut missions to the International Space Station from all different parts of the world. The last one was all European missions. The previous one, we took 2 astronauts from Saudi Arabia plus 1 United States. We pretty much have now sold all our tickets for AX4 that is scheduled for maybe later this year or beginning of next year. So we'll be continuing to do that. We're planning to have our first module of Axiom Station that is pretty much ready, be tested, ready, and launched to the current ISS in December of 2026. That will connect to ISS. And the second one a year after that, and then more and more, and then build our space station, and then operate jointly with ISS until we separate.
Didn't you also collaborate with Prada?
Yes, so we are a commercial company, and that's true. We have signed a deal with Prada. In Axiom Space, not only are we building a space station, we're building the next generation spacesuits. So the next time you see astronauts walking on the surface of the moon, they would be wearing Axiom Space spacesuit, or when they do EVAs around space station.
I see, interesting. You've done a remarkable job kind of looking at the landscape and then finding ways to make some very interesting or even very sexy projects useful. Like when you're going back and forth to the space station, you're flying the SpaceX Dragon. Like, how have you thought about this space? How have you done this? Just by keen observation?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that I think it was transformational is reduction in the cost of transportation makes the space ecosystem more real. right? And lots of kudos to SpaceX. We're one of their largest customers overall, after the government and, of course, internal Starlink. But we work with them very closely, and as that cost comes down, what I call is democratization of space becomes more of a reality, and more people can go to space. We can do much more in space. And also, the same thing is true with going to other bodies within our solar system and beyond. And I am hoping there will be more competition in that transportation space. There are other companies like Blue Origin that are making a lot of progress, as well as Axiom Space. You just recently saw Boeing launch their Starliner that docked with the International Space Station. So as a result of that competition and the commercial space, I think commercial space is really a game changer in terms of how it's accelerating the space access and space economy.
So we're in our final minute. What have we not talked about that we should?
I think one of the things that people don't realize is that with all the problems that we have on Earth, with all the wars that's going on and everything else, how unified we are as humans. When people who go to space and they go around Earth, they don't see borders, they don't see races, they don't see religion, called overview effect.
Yeah.
That all of a sudden they see this beautiful, gorgeous blue globe that life exists within it. And what I'm hoping that space exploration gets us out of being tribal and realize that in the context of universe, in the context of galaxy, we really are one race, human race and human species. And until we evolve to that recognition, that consciousness, that we're not moving to the next level of becoming part of the interstellar community.
With that, we're out of time. Thank you so much for this, and thank you to everybody for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This episode was produced by me and Emma Silikans and mixed by Garrett Lang, with original music from him and Jacob Gorski. Thanks for listening. I'm Jennifer Strong.
From PRX.